Hi everyone, I'm Hisnara, the editor of cheekyllittlecareers.com. For this video, I'm really excited to say that I've been joined by my mentee, Robert Greene, who will be joining the London office of the elite New York law firm Skadden Arps as a trainee solicitor in August. I got to know Robert just over a year ago when we literally swapped LinkedIn messages, and I decided, oh, I like the look of his LinkedIn profile. Let's set up a call. And I started to offer him some informal mentoring. At the time, he was preparing for 3 vacation schemes with quite an eclectic mix of firms. So what we're going to discuss in this video is a couple of things. Firstly, how do you research law firms, and how do you then tell them apart so you can pick which firm is right for you? Because Robert was lucky enough to end up with two training contract offers. Before he reveals more, let me just ask him to introduce himself first. Robert, how are you?
I'm good, Sarah. Thank you for that introduction. And yeah, I definitely know from the outset, picking that law firm is one of the hardest, tasks. Obviously it gets tough as you go on, but I think there are so many firms out there. There's so much information out there. And when you're launching into your legal studies and your legal career, it's actually a bit of a minefield.
You're a non-law student and you're a career changer because you used to be a journalist prior to making the switch. And I always find that non-law students, understandably, are slightly behind the curve when it comes to their understanding of the legal market. So how did you start to sort of develop your knowledge? Let's go back to the start.
But really how I got to understand what a lawyer does was actually through my work as a journalist, because as a journalist, I was actually often working with lawyers. And so that's actually also where my interest in it began. And I was originally interested in becoming a media lawyer. And I was really interested in defamation and, privacy claims. And so I sort of started researching it kind of through informal networking, I would say, just speaking to people who were lawyers, speaking to barristers, speaking to people in, mainly in media law, and trying to get a feel for the sort of work they did and how they got there, and how I might go about it. I would definitely advise anybody who wants to make a career change, or do any sort of extra curricular activities that's going to take up a lot of time, speak to people, get a feel for what that industry is like, the hours, the pay, the work-life balance, the rewards, the disadvantages that you might never even hear about.
I agree with you. And what about American firms? Because you said that you wanted to specialize in defamation, and here you are about to join Skadden, which is known for areas like private equity. It's got a great international arbitration practice, which I know you did spent a weekend during your VAC scheme. How did you even find out about Skaddens, and what attracted you to American firms?
When it came to actually really seriously thinking about training contracts and vacation schemes and where I wanted to train, what I sort of did was, and this is quite different to what I think a lot of students do, is I sort of tried to pick a broad range of firms. So I wasn't necessarily attracted to US firms, but I was attracted to M&A, because my background actually before journalism was business. That's what I studied. So I was attracted to sort of corporate law, but equally, as I said, I was interested in media law. So my firm choices were based more around the sort of practice areas that I was interested in, which was quite broad, but also the types of firms that I felt I as a person could fit in with. And the firms I applied to, I all met through Aspiring Solicitors, which you may know is a sort of a network to help people from minority backgrounds. So I met Skadden through that. I met the other two firms that I applied to through that. And once I met them, once I got to speak to some people in those firms and realized, oh, there's something here that I might really like, I then took that next step further. So then I started going to their open days. I started attending, any other sort of events they were doing with, the likes of Cheeky Little Careers. That's how I met Richard Jewell, who's a good friend of yours. And I think it's sort of almost like you have to do that like initial filter just to see, okay, this one sort of interests me, this one. And then you've got to take them almost to another level and try to engage with those firms. Because if you try to engage with every firm on every level and you make 100 applications, they're either going to be, you either have more time in the world than everyone else, does, which I don't think you do, or you're making very superficial applications. You're doing minimal research, looking at the legal directories and just hoping for the best, copying and pasting and switching out names. And that won't get you very far.
Okay, so you ended up spending time with 3 different firms. How did you then go about converting those VAC schemes into a decision as to what you're going to do next with regard to which offer you're going to accept?
I think when you get into and do your vacation schemes, you get a real sense for the firm. I certainly went in, I suppose, to each of the schemes thinking I knew what the firm would be like from reading the press, etc. But when I got into the scheme, I think my opinion of a lot of the firms changed for good or for worse. And I definitely felt when I was at Skadden, there was a drive in me that was almost ignited. And I knew it matched my ambition as well as a lot of the sort of social and cultural things that are really important to me. So I'm a big LGBT advocate, and so was the firm, and it was Pride Month when I was there, and they were doing lots around Pride Month. So I knew I could kind of match these two sides of me, and I didn't necessarily get that in some of the other firms that I went to, not because there was anything wrong with those firms, but it didn't click like it clicked when I was in Skadden.
It is important, isn't it, to sort of talk to as many people as possible, just to use them as sounding boards, just to make sure that your decision is made based on relevant information rather than hearsay or misguided sort of advice that someone gave you 10 years ago.
One of the things I did, and this was a tip you gave me, and I think I would definitely recommend this to anybody who does a vacation scheme, is to keep a diary of your vacation scheme. And obviously the tasks you did, but also how you felt at the end of each day, what you liked, what you didn't like, and be really honest with yourself. Because if you're going to do multiple vacation schemes and potentially over a number of years, it's going to be so hard to remember what that first one was like and what you really felt. I mean, rose tinted glasses and all of that, it's very difficult to judge things objectively. But I had a diary every day, just quick, it didn't have to be very long, how I felt, what I liked, what I didn't like. And then when it came to like assessing, I had my Excel spreadsheet out, etc. But it was quite easy actually, because I did have those notes to refer back to. That's actually how I felt 3 months ago when I did the end of this game, as opposed to what I think I felt looking back 3 months later.
That's a really good idea. I still hold that advice. Journaling is absolutely a brilliant way of keeping a record of, as you say, how you feel, sort of wins, losses, lessons learnt. And all of that's really helpful also when you have the interview at the end of the scheme. The advantage of doing VAT schemes or getting exposure to as many lawyers from a firm as possible is it's probably the best way, isn't it, to identify what the culture is like.
Certainly desktop-based research can only take you so far. I think, like I was saying earlier on, trying to engage with the firm at as many touch points as possible. So if they're doing an open day, if they're doing a, like you do, networking session with partners and law firms, trying to, meet people as much as you can, you will get a sense for the culture. And I think that is the beauty of doing the vacation scheme, is that you get to see people in their natural habitat, I guess. What are they like when they're working? What are they like when they're not necessarily doing a networking event? Are they still friendly and engaging and interesting people? So, that is the beauty of doing, a vacation scheme. But obviously vacation schemes are really competitive, and it is really difficult to, secure a vacation scheme. I applied to Skadden twice before I even got an offer for a vacation scheme.
Obviously, Cheeky Little Careers is an amazing resource, but what other resources did you find helpful to help you get to where you are at in terms of the information you needed to gather?
Yeah, and then Cheeky Little Careers is definitely, I know obviously we're on your platform, but it is a brilliant resource, and I did use it. I attended lots of the networking events, got incredible access to incredible partners through attending those events. I also attended events from other organizations, so All About Law, Aspiring Solicitors. Podcasts, I think, are brilliant, not just in terms of like learning about firms, but just general commercial awareness. I listen to the FT news briefing every morning, engaging content, and you've suddenly caught up on the biggest news stories of that day. Yeah. Similarly, there's always webinars going on. Lots of firms put on webinars for their clients, and they are such an easy and good way, not just to learn about the firm, but to learn about what firms are talking about. Lots of firms do open events for their clients. Just sign up an hour on a Monday morning.
Agreed. I think, using both sort of your national newspapers, the BBC website, and then the more law specific stuff, because the key is to be able to connect issues that are affecting the world and connecting that to how that's going to impact law firms or their clients. So brilliant. I'm afraid we're out of time. It's been lovely catching up with you. Can talk for much longer, but we shall continue this offline. Best of luck with your training contract, and I hope it all goes well. And I will catch up with you very soon. Take care. Bye.